Hello, people. I'm back with another podcast episode. I had something recorded, but honestly, I recorded it over the span of like 4 weeks, and it was all over the place. You could tell I recorded it over the span of some time, and I just felt uncertain about it, so I just wanted to come back and do something a little different. And so, but also just talk about what the fuck is on my mind and on my heart. I have been holding in a lot of things, not on purpose, but I'm just going through a deep moment of, I don't even know what to call it, but I do this thing where I feel like I'm afraid of being misunderstood, right? And that's always been a thing. I'm afraid of being misunderstood, but that's for lack of better words, because I don't think it's that I'm afraid. It's that it's happened so much. And I kind of can be controlling at times. And I wish that I could control how I'm perceived, but I know that I can't. And that's an ongoing practice of releasing that desire of control. But I tend to try to avoid being misunderstood. One of the ways that shows up is me over-explaining. I'm really bad at that. I literally feel like I can't say anything if I don't include the nuances and all of the parts and perspectives. And so I've been kind of silencing myself a lot lately. And it's so interesting because I was looking at videos of myself from 2 years ago, and I was so uncomfortable because of how vulnerable I was in those videos. I was uncomfortable witnessing myself be raw and be wrong and make mistakes and say things in absolute ways, or just not even absolute, but just say things and that just be that. And however it's taken, that's just what it is. And I'm not talking about just like saying shit that's just wrong and offensive. No, I was specifically watching a video about me. It was like a get to know me video. And it wasn't no questions. It was just me. It was like 4 minutes of me telling fun facts about myself and just shit that I like to do, how I identify myself. And I was just so bold and so confident. And it was so uncomfortable to look back at that because I won't say limit because that's not the word, but I hold back to some extent nowadays, definitely more than I used to. And I know that it's because I know better now. When you know better, you do better. And some things I just have more perspective on. And even with this, it's so many complexities that I could go into, but I don't have to. And I'm trying to believe that. I'm trying to believe that I will be understood, even if I only say one or two or a few parts of how I feel about one thing. I have to trust that I will be understood by people who seek to understand me. And I have to release the need to control how I'm perceived, because that's completely out of my hands. But yeah, I was looking back at that video like, wow, I was really confident. I remember I posted, it's just looking back at my old Instagram videos is really just, it feels like sometimes when I look at myself in the mirror, like in my eyes, which is something that I don't do often because it's extremely uncomfortable. And it makes me think of a video clip of Auntie Tabitha Brown. I saw a few days ago, and she was talking about how uncomfortable it is to look at yourself in the eyes in the mirror. And I just really felt that. Like, I really felt that. But anyway, in the original episode 5, something that I talked about was how I want to make more in-person friendship connections, and how I won't let my desire for these connections make me compromise my standards, because I'm really picky. And even though I feel lonely sometimes, I won't let that loneliness put me in situations that are not favorable for me or the other person. And I was texting my friend earlier, and she was just noticing how intentional I am with the connections that I make. And I love that, because first of all, know that if we are friends, it's because I fucking care about you. And everybody can't just be my friend. Not no more. I definitely used to be the kind of person that somebody can just reach out to and be like, I want to be friends, or like, let's get to know each other. And I would oblige, like literally, like I have proof of those relationships. And they're not in my life anymore, but it doesn't mean that those weren't valuable connections. But at the same time, those were connections that originated from one person having a desire that the other obliged. And moving forward, I'm very interested to see how new connections form. And I've been nurturing this new friendship, and it's refreshing all around, but it's also a situation that we both consented to, and we both had a mutual desire. Given how we met, we both showed up to a space for a similar goal or a similar outcome. And so that in itself feels like two people showing up in a connection that they want to be in, and that means a lot to me. I'm also just, it's funny. So I was texting my friend, and this was before they were talking about, or she was talking about how she notices how intentional I am. And something that I said was, I said that it's very interesting watching my desires shift as I continue evolving. And after I said that, I was on Twitter, and I saw a tweet from Kimmy Marie, Kemi. I know you probably see their posts a lot. They say very profound things. And it says, Virgo, your values are changing. What you truly value and want is becoming clearer. Embrace that. Don't fight it. And part of the other part of the message that I sent to my friend, I was talking about how I learned so much about myself during relationships, and I'll specify afterwards, during relationships, and especially after a relationship ends. Now, all of my connections are relationships. Let me make that clear. But just for, I don't know, fewer words, I used the quote unquote standard term. When people say relationship, they're usually talking about some monogamous committed partnership, and that is what I was referencing. But again, that's not the language I would typically use when I have time to form. Well, I had time, but that's not the point. All of my connections are relationships, but in this message, I was specifically talking about the monogamous romantic relationships that I've been in. And so just how I learned so much about myself, and each relationship teaches me a little bit more about what I desire, what my capacity is, how my capacity shifts, what the conditions of certain things are. And it's very interesting. It's just very interesting. Like, wow, I'm just ever changing. But as I've been reflecting on all of the relationships I've been in, I find that a lot of times I commit myself to things that I am not ready for. Okay, now, I love analogies. That's one thing about me. But sometimes I give horrible analogies. So let me think on this. Okay, this might be a good example. Let's say, and this actually happened. Let's say I want ice cream from the store, and today is Tuesday. So let's say I'm like, well, I know I'm going to get ice cream anyway, so I might as well get it today, even though it's Tuesday and I said I would go grocery shopping on Friday. And I get ice cream on Tuesday, but it can't fit in my freezer because there's not enough space. But I plan to cook on Wednesday, and that would have cleared more space in my freezer. But since I went grocery shopping before I planned to on Friday, I don't even have space for the ice cream that I bought on Tuesday. Now, that might not... That was kind of a cute analogy. Ooh. Ooh. That was a loud noise. It's like a truck pumping their brakes. Oh my gosh, child. But, like, I find myself in situations where it's like, okay, I know I want to date this person, even though I'm not ready now. They're ready now. So I'll go ahead and commit because it was going to happen anyway. What? Like, that's not the math on that, fam. But, you live and you learn. And I also think, and this is something that I said to my friend, I wish I could copy and paste audio messages into this. Like, I know when you send an audio message in text, you can copy it and put it in other places, like another text thread or in your notes app, but you can't copy and paste into the recorder. And I wish you could. But I was telling my friend that I like slow builds. I like relationships that have a solid foundation, and again, relationships of all kind that have a solid foundation, and it's grounded in care and communication and respect and mutual values and standards. And I find that the more time I take getting to know a person before committing to a particular relationship dynamic, the longer I take to actually get to know the person, the more I'm able to discern the connection and actually determine how we would best function. And something else that I was talking to myself about earlier is compatibility. So right now, and something that I'll probably just continue observing this year is, what does it mean in my life for me to be compatible with someone? What does that look like? What does that feel like? What relationships can I reflect on and witness genuine compatibility? Having common interests is not compatibility for me. Being in the same social circles does not mean that we are compatible to me. Following the same Instagram accounts does not mean we're compatible. For me, at least, that's not what that means. Listening to the same music, watching the same shows, that doesn't make us compatible, at least for me. So I'm thinking and I'm sitting with, not me. No, I hate when I talk like that sometimes. It's like, bitch, you're not on a TED Talk. But no, it's just funny. Also, I've been like playing with my voice. That's a whole nother thing. But anyway, I'm sitting with those thoughts and those feelings, and really getting introspective and retrospective. Like, what is compatibility for me? How do I determine compatibility? And also, I might even ask my friends, like, what determines compatibility for you? In what ways do you think we're compatible? And this is something I recently got out of a monogamous romantic relationship due to some incompatibilities. And it wasn't until after the breakup that I realized more ways that we were incompatible that I did not recognize while we were in the relationship, because I was so focused on the conscious incompatibilities that we knew were present, and trying to see how we could work through that and maintain our connection. I wasn't even noticing all the other ways we may not have been compatible. But I also think that one thing, I met that person at a time in I met them last June, and a lot was happening at that time, and it was so refreshing to have met that person and to have shared the type of love and intimacy that we shared. And I think we both needed that at that time. Like, we both needed somebody to lean on at that time specifically. And so I think that relationship showed up at that time for a solid ass fucking reason. And it ended for its own reasons in its own way. But I definitely was thinking about that. And just how compatibility shows up in my life. And so that is just, it's an interesting reflection. It's an interesting what's the word? Query? No, I don't think that's the word. It's just interesting to have all these thoughts, right? And to like observe these things and to be curious. Like, I've always been a very curious person, and so I'm just thinking through ways of being, ways of loving. And polyamory has been something at the front of my mind for a few weeks now, and I've been making notes because I want to do a IG live discussion about it, because it's really important for this to be a community conversation. So yeah, that's the bulk of what I wanted to share. I have a lot more thoughts and feelings, but I think it'll be fun to ponder and also hear people's thoughts about this topic. I do think this will be one of those public podcast episodes, so I'm really thrilled about that. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you subscribe to the Patreon. Wherever you're listening, thank you. Do all the things if you feel inclined. You can also hit me in the DMs, respectfully though. Yeah, this was really fun. I feel really good about this episode. I feel a lot better about this episode than original episode 5. And I'm thankful that you joined me here.